Welcome to the next episode of the Austin Bar Association's Council of Firsts. I'm your host, Amanda Arriaga, First Latina Bar President. This podcast is made possible by the Texas Bar Foundation. Today we talk to Gabrielle Smith, incoming president of the Travis County Women Lawyers Association. She's a principal at Lloyd Gosling, Rochelle and Townsend, PC, where she represents clients in litigation matters in state and federal courts. She's a graduate of Texas A&M University and the University of Texas School of Law. After law school, she started in Dallas, where she served as co-chair of the Law Student Assistance Committee for the Dallas Young Lawyers Association. But since she's been in Austin, she's been part of the Austin Young Lawyers Association Leadership Academy, Austin Black Lawyers Association. She's a Texas Bar Foundation Fellow and has been named a Rising Star by Thomson Reuters, and of course has been a rock star for the Travis County Women Lawyers Association. I'm so happy today to talk to Gabrielle Smith. How are you?
I am excellent. I'm here today talking to you and feeling good. So I'm gonna chalk that up to a win.
Well, I'm excited to have you, and I'd like to start at the beginning. Why did you want to be a lawyer?
So I would say, I grew up in Austin, Texas. I was a Girl Scout from the time I was in first grade through the time I finished high school. And one of the fabulous things about being in Austin, Texas, is you get access to a lot of great people. And so we had fabulous troop leaders who brought women of different professions and careers in to talk to us when we were in elementary, middle, high school. And we had one, I don't know if it was a badge we were earning. This is getting a little fuzzy. It's been a few years, a few sleeps, but we had some judges come in and talk to us. And it's something that, at 11, 12 years old, I don't know that I really thought about. My parents were engineers. My mother later went into education. And, as someone who does talk a lot, that was appealing to me, being a lawyer. As somebody who loved to read and write, I was the girl who was on a library committee at my school for no reason. That's not something people should do. But I was like, oh, these are all things that kind of, the things that the judge was saying in terms of what someone who is interested in law might match the things that I like to do. And so it's always kind of in the background of my mind as I'm going through middle high school. I was in the journalism program at my high school, was editor-in-chief of the newspaper. So again, still tried to develop my writing skills. And then when I got to Texas A&M, I sat down maybe not the first week of school, maybe the third week of school with Karen Severn, who was our pre-law advisor at A&M and who was a fabulous pre-law advisor, and said, Karen, I think I might want to go to law school. I'm not sure. But if I wanted to go to law school, what would I do and how would that look? And so, it's something that I was pursuing a marketing degree, but thought, okay, well, maybe I want to do something with that ultimately with my career. Maybe I want to go to law school. Really enjoyed my degree plan and the curriculum and also the practical skills that I got when I was an intern for the city of College Station. But I also still really wanted to explore law school, and so worked closely with Karen. And like I said, we had a fabulous pre-law advisor. We had a really strong pre-law society. Got to be exposed to folks in admissions at the various law schools. We had tours. I was on I was an officer in our pre-law society, and so it was one of those things where it was kind of a dual exploration. But I said, well, I can always probably come back and do business if I want to, but I feel like I'm good at school, but I don't like school. So if I have to go to school to be a lawyer, let me continue and go to school now and get that out of the way. So at least I have that done. And then after that, I just kind of naturally kept going. And here I am 10 years into practice.
I love that you are a unicorn a bit in the same way I am, because it seems rare in Austin to find graduates of Texas A&M University and the University of Texas School of Law. But one thing that I loved that I always do that people in Austin hate is we were at an event last week and you got to the microphone and you shouted, howdy. And it freaks out the lawyers of Austin.
Oh, it does.
But I shouted howdy back proudly.
And I heard a few howdies.
Yes,
there were some howdies. That felt good.
Yes, I also am proud to tell you that I have a pre-law society shirt from A&M that's fully 25 years old. But I still love it and I still have it. So I'm glad that we have all these parallels in our unicorn lives.
I love it. I love it.
And one of the parallels is that you are about to be in charge of a brilliant bar association, Travis County Women Lawyers Association. Tell me about some of the projects that you're most proud of.
Absolutely. I mean, I will start a little bit backtracking, saying that I TCWLA is an organization that I was not seeking out when I moved back to Austin. I was not involved in the women lawyers organization in Dallas, and now I wish I had been getting involved in TCWLA. One of my law partners, Sarah Glasser, who's a former TCWLA president, got me involved, and I really credit her with that because I didn't know. I knew people from being in Austin previously, but I didn't know people as in the Austin legal community. We worked together. Sarah and I started at our firm around the same time, so I was like, well, I'll just follow her, and I couldn't be more glad that I did, because TCWLA was already doing a lot of great work in the community in terms of connecting lawyers of all experience levels, of all backgrounds, with our judiciary, with other practitioners in town. They put on fabulous continuing legal education events. One of the things that's a kind of a hallmark of TCWLA's programming is every other year TCWLA puts on a federal court CLE that is an all-day CLE event, but it actually qualifies to meet the seminar requirement for admission to the Western District of Texas. So a lot of people come in person or view it online. We also make it available year-round. And people know if I want to get admitted to federal court here, they look to TCWLA to make sure they can get access to that CLE so they can get admitted to federal court. There's a lot of great social events. I know that there are events that we've kind of been taking on in the last couple of years that I've been on the board, the last few years that I've been on the board. We've partnered with a number of organizations, but including Minority Women Pursuing Law, which is an undergraduate organization at the University of Texas. And just through good connections, again, fostering that communication and environment that TCWLA does, that really a lot of our Austin bar community does. I know that I got plugged in with the recently outgoing MWPL president, Kirsten Padilla, and she mentioned, oh, we have a clothing drive that we are, that we put on twice a year. And I was like, well, I've been looking for a way for us to do a clothing drive. And so I was like, rather than us reinvent the wheel, like if this is a product that you already have, rather than trying to do something separate and dividing our efforts, let us support you. Let us support you as young women who are interested in the law. Let's support you as young people who maybe don't otherwise have access to professional clothes. It was maybe I would say season 2.5 of COVID, and people are having to clean up their closets because some people, myself maybe not included, couldn't fit all the same suits and dresses I had before COVID, or maybe I bought some shoes and dresses that kind of sat in my closet for a while that I was never going to wear because I bought them out of boredom and because we couldn't leave the house. And now that we're out, I'm like, I really don't need a new pair of everything for every day. And so it was a good way for our members to clean out their closets and also build that connection. And now we've helped kind of supply clothing for that clothing drive the last few years. And I think that was kind of near and dear to my heart because I love clothes, but I also love not being wasteful. And I also love being able to see things get a new life for people who are very deserving of it. And those young women are so inspiring. The things that they do in terms of their programming in WPL, they do a lot of community service. They're actively reaching out to firms in town to go and do tours and visits. My firm actually hosted MWPL last fall, where we had a group of young women come and have lunch with our attorneys, did office tours, and then did kind of small group Q&As. And so that ability kind of to help foster and create that community really comes through TCWLA. There's a lot of things that we do with them. We even during COVID, COVID kind of never really ends. But during, let's say, again, I'll say season 1 of COVID now, we had a joint virtual meet and greet event with MWPL. And the turnout that we had for that was absolutely fabulous. I will credit TCWLA with COVID was hard on each and every one of us. It's not natural to just suddenly have to just be holed up in your homes for like ever. So some of the social programming TCWLA did better than maybe any other organization that I saw during like the height of COVID. I know we had a social where it was I think that's like a wine and cheese or small snack pairings, and they, if you registered, they sent a little box to your home, and then everyone got on, I don't know if it was Zoom or it's like Google Meets, and tried things out real time. People were in the chat. We stayed after and kept talking afterwards. And the way that TCWLA pulled that off in a time that people were maybe just getting on like a Zoom happy hour and saying hi and bye, but they pulled off an event that felt like an event while you were still in your own home. And I think that the ingenuity that that took and the commitment to keeping connection that that took was really inspiring. And it was after that, I mean, that was at the end of that year is when I agreed to be on the TCWLA board, in part because, we had the meetings, we had the socials, and everything's good when the world is good. But I always love to see the mettle of an organization, whether that's a law firm that I work for, and I credit my firm with how they handled the COVID response, or an organization like TCWLA, the mettle of a firm or an organization when things are not good, honestly says a whole lot. And that made me very impressed with TCWLA.
Well, and TCWLA is known for these tentpole events that you always have. But then you'll have new innovative things. A couple of years ago, you started the Well Summit with a bunch of the other women-focused legal organizations. And as president, I know that you have some new ideas for new things that you could add to the selection as well. You want to talk about some of those new ideas?
Yeah. So, I mean, I will, and I'm going to keep probably just shouting out random fabulous women this whole time. But I mean, credit to Shireen Thomas, who was a longtime board member of TCWLA. The Well Summit has been a great space. And I'm probably not going to sell this as well as I should, or as well as Shireen would, or any of our other fabulous committee members would. But I know that the Well Summit has been a space that, or has created a space that I don't think I even understood was missing, both in our programming, both in our community. And when I say it was missing, it doesn't mean that I felt that there was a void before, but the way it moved in and opened things up in terms of having dialogue outside of just, our little happy hour check-ins. And I don't mean to diminish our happy hours or our other social events, but it was meaningful and introspective. It's a combination of wellness, discussions of service, discussions of career advancement. I mean, I know the first Well Summit, we had breakout sessions in the afternoon, and we talked about how to negotiate for a raise or how to negotiate for a position, how you explore different job opportunities. And, you always get CLAs on that, and we've all gotten career coaching counseling, but having people share their real experiences in a room, there's no microphones, there is no cameras. I mean, I love putting on a show as much as the next litigator, but just having raw, unvarnished discussions and sharing experience, but also coming up with solutions at the same time. I don't think I've had in a lot of professional spaces such candid and productive dialogue as I have in some of our Well Summit breakout discussions. And I would say this year we tried something new with having kind of two different career track sessions in the afternoon. We had one that focused on caring for, your teens and kids, and also how to plan then for caring for older parents and how we transition to that and those different phases in life and things that do, I think, disproportionately affect women. And then we had one that talked about negotiating in everyday life. And so there are things that are just kind of about mindfulness, but mindfulness in a real way, not just checkbox way. And it's also giving you tools to create shifts in our thinking, and also continuing that dialogue even after the Well Summit. I mean, and then, we still end with a little social hour. And I think continuing that dialogue, we've seen people make good connections, exchange information, and then they can foster and facilitate those. I mean, some of the women I met at the first Well Summit, I see now at other bar events. I've gone and had lunch with them. I put them in my Rolodex of referrals. And so it has both the byproduct of helping you figure out how to build yourself up, but also build your network and build these other women up. And I mean, again, I credit Shireen, I credit all the women on our committee, and I credit all the women who attend, all the people who attended the Well Summit the last 2 years. And I'm looking really forward to the next one. In terms of other things that, I'm looking for TCWLA to do in the same vein of building women up. I know that when I moved back to Austin, I guess about 5 years ago or so, I'd heard about a women's resource fair, but especially with COVID, so I moved back in 2019, and then in 2020, we all know things kind of just like, and that's a really official noise, but everything kind of just shut down. in 2020. And I know that we've kind of been trying to rebuild things. And it seemed like this year, actually, TCWLA's volunteer committee, and I'll shout those women out. The women who signed up for the volunteer committee this year have been so engaged and so involved. And we have not had a volunteer committee for several years. But people signed up for volunteer committee, and I said, well, I don't think we have one of those. But if people want to do it, then, I'm happy to at least be an interim chair. We will have soon a chair who is not the president or president-elect. So I think that's probably better for all of us. But, how can we make greater impacts in our community? I mean, I know that all of us do service. All of us have a heart for service. I'm a big fan of, and I live my life being a servant leader. And so how can we kind of maybe bolster that aspect of TCWLA? I know that we plan to sponsor a VLS clinic in the fall by just kind of having our members come and support that. But going back to the Women's Resource Fair, putting that on. So we kind of talked at the beginning of the volunteer committee this year of what, this committee has a clean slate, which doesn't exist. So they're like, well, what does this committee do? And I said, I don't know. We're just going to make it up. And so, we thought, well, let's have a mix of low impact, low involvement service ideas. This year, we supported the Austin Diaper Bank's Bright Spot program by donating menstrual hygiene products and donating money to help them buy menstrual hygiene products. And so that's easy. You just scan a QR code, donate through Amazon or donate through the website. But we also thinking, okay, what are big picture things that we can do? And so we've begun the discussion of let's reinstitute the Women's Resource Fair. Let's think about, we've been helping with MWPL's clothing drive. Let's think about how can we get women in this community clothes for interviews? How can we get, let's think about haircuts. Let's think about resume workshops. Let's think about ways that we can help put somebody on a better path forward that is right in line with the mission of TCWLA. I mean, we are women lawyers, but we are women. We are women helping other women in our community. And that's when we provide legal service, right? I mean, law is a service industry. And so I think that is perfectly in line with our mission, and it's a little bit more work than some of the other community service things we've done. So that's why we've kind of begun the conversation now, looking to do it in the coming bar year.
Well, I'm excited to see what you will do in your bar year, and we'll put information in the podcast notes about how folks can join or support any of your programs, which is going to be increasingly important because if we turn the talk to DEI, we know that the use of DEI, the use of state funding to support DEI projects is something that our current elected officials are not interested in. So it's impacting the state bar. It could impact some of the mandatory bar associations, but not yours. You are a voluntary bar association. You're able to have DEI-related tracks, projects, grants if you wanted to. So let's talk about why TCWLA remains so important in this time where funding might not be available in other ways for DEI.
Absolutely. I mean, so you're exactly right. We don't get any funds from the state. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We get donations through sponsors. If we have events, we maybe do things at cost. So folks pay for whatever it would cost us to put something on, like for a lunch or something. But what that allows us to do, I mean, because we're not tied to the state funding, is to really be able to support a number of different missions. I mean, I know that TCWLA, along with the other affinity bars here in Austin, are thinking about things that are resurging, revitalizing the diversity report card effort that has kind of been dormant the last few years, just because we've had turnover in leadership, and again, we weren't having receptions because again we couldn't go outside. But we are working on that and having a partnership potentially for our reception with the Texas Minority Council program, and so also partnering with other organizations that can we help lift you up in ways, and how can we collaborate more? And I think that's one of the things that I want to thinking about DEI, like, are there ways we can collaborate and support things that maybe we'll see different support in the future? And so one of the things too, thinking about other programming we'll put on, we've at least had the discussion of hosting a when I say LSAT clinic, I'm not planning to, take up the space of like Kaplan or anything like that, but more how do we put people in touch with resources for the LSAT, particularly people who are in underrepresented communities or are URM students, and can we, a lot of us work at law firms. Can we create spaces where we can have like, practice testing sites, and so people get a feel of what it would be like to take the LSAT real time with a proctor and all of that. And does that extend to maybe even thinking bigger picture pipeline, um, high school students prepping for the SAT or ACT. And while it's not necessarily, it's seeking out those schools that have a lot of underrepresented students who, maybe haven't been exposed to what it takes to get to law school, but also beyond. And I mean, like I said, we've had student groups come to like our firm, and I know that our organization does a good job of communicating within our membership of, hey, these groups are looking for XYZ and support. How can we help that? So I mean, in addition to TCWLA as an organization helping, you know, under its official, name brand, how can we connect our membership and, their private support to various initiatives and things that they can put together. So I would say that, we have the ability to put on the LSAT test prep, some of the counseling, some of the mentor programs, and, we can host certain things, get sponsors in a way that if I'm only relying on just state dollars, I can't. We can seek out grants to maybe supplement some of this stuff. We have also not just firm sponsors, we have corporate sponsors. And so the resources that we have and the sources of funds we have is a lot broader. And I think that that's exciting from the standpoint of we're doing a lot. We're a very, very busy organization. But there's always things that we could be doing more of. And also, rather than starting a bunch of new things, let's see what's already out there, and let's see the things that were under attack. And are there ways that, well, it won't look exactly like it did, but how can we maybe help in going even into, I mean, we've talked about what it looks like in terms of partnering with some of these universities and providing supports, and maybe asking the questions of, well, what sort of projects or what sort of resources did you have that maybe you don't have? And, are there ways that we can create some sort of proxy for that through our organization, either by itself or in partnership with other, local affinity bars? And that means local affinity bars here in Austin. That means affinity bars across the state of Texas. I mean, this is not an Austin issue. This is a Texas issue.
So audience, if you want to help TCWLA in their mission, then look in the podcast notes and donate or join or be a corporate sponsor or a firm sponsor, because there's a lot to do and a lot of people that want your assistance. So question of the day: do you think the legal profession is doing a better job at being more equitable, diverse, and inclusive?
I maybe have a different answer on each of those words. But I mean, I would say the numbers. I mean, I look at the state bar reports in terms of the different demographic trends. By the numbers, the profession is more diverse. But I mean, going back to the diversity report card, one of the things we also look at, the firms who participate report, their numbers, big picture in terms of this is how many lawyers or summer associates, and the whole composite number we have at the firm. Here's how many meet these underrepresented or historically marginalized categories. But then we also break it down by position, right? Because having a bunch of minority associates, but a board that maybe does not look the same, means something different than a firm who has greater representation at all levels. So maybe they have the same, maybe you have a firm where they have 35 lawyers, but two firms have 35 lawyers. And let's say, I don't know, 10 of those at each firm is in an underrepresented category. But at firm A, again, they're all either associates or summer associates. At firm B, they're equity partners or non-equity partners, they're associates, they're of counsel. And I think that those two firms, while just the big picture numbers, it looks like we're more diverse and we're equally diverse. There's not equal representation, because at firm A, the people who are making the decision, the people who have a seat at the table, look no different than they did 25 years ago. At firm B, that's not the case. And so I think that in order to understand, I mean, I think so unquestionably, as we see people graduate from law schools now and enter into the profession, I think that by the numbers, we have a more diverse population that probably is better reflective of this state. But in terms of equity and inclusion and advancement and getting people a seat at the table, not just opening the door, but actually inviting them in and saying, sit down, I think that probably still has some work left to do. And I think that it's a matter of not just counting in terms of, like I said, like firm A and firm B, they both have the same number of, diverse attorneys, but though what that looks like and what that means is, I think, very different. And so doing an examination of, well, how are we advancing people? And is it just like, do we have a prescriptive track? Is it based on whether or not, we feel like this person is ready? Well, why do I feel like, you know, Sarah's ready, but not Angela? Is it because I have a greater affinity for Sarah because I have similar backgrounds, or because, I know that she's someone who has done, these 5 types of cases, but meanwhile, Angela hasn't got the opportunity to do those 5 types of cases. And why is that? Is that because I just know, like, once Sarah's done one, I'm like, well, she has experience in these, but I gave her the opportunity because I just know she's a good person. And so it's one of those things too, where we have to also assess our implicit biases, because that sounds like, oh, well, of course Sarah gets to do these because this is her niche, but I helped her create that niche in a way that maybe I felt was benign at the time because I wasn't examining my own biases and standards. And so I think that's also where I see maybe a lot of the work too left to be done in this kind of space, in terms of when I'm thinking about particularly equity and inclusion. I mean, the diversity, I think people get really freaked out when they hear that, and they automatically shoot to tokenism or quotas, or people feel attacked if they feel like they're in a category that, and I'll just say it, if they're like, oh, I'm a middle-aged white man, and it's harder now to be a middle-aged white man than it ever has been before, and has that statement been made to me almost verbatim, not 1, 2, or 3 times, but let's keep going. And I don't say that because I do understand the challenges in communicating in order to affect change in that way, because I don't think it's a helpful way to affect change by saying, here are all the things that you're doing wrong and things you're not considering. I think it's helpful to say, here are the things to be considered. Let's think about how to consider them. I think framing it in a solutions way and also in a business way, because honestly, it makes good business sense to make sure that we are seeing different perspectives represented, because I want my perspective represented, but I also do want my older white male colleagues represented. I think that we create better results by having both of our perspectives. It doesn't mean that like he needs to go away. He absolutely needs to be there too. We need to sit next to each other. And that's what it really means. That's why we need to create these spaces, because ideally we're all there. It's not that one person's there instead of another. And I think that's also another thing people struggle with, is equality versus equity, because it's not to say, okay, well, now you can go to law school and of course you'll move forward, even even in the advancement space. It's okay, how do we make sure we're going through life and through our practices and through our mentoring and our guiding and our supervising with more intention? So that way I'm not just saying, well, everyone can do it. I'm thinking, how can this person do it? How can I help them? Again, being intentional, being solutions oriented. And I think that we do that for our clients, and we should do that for each other, because this is a collaborative profession. I think about, these new business courts or any new advancement in the law. I mean, thinking about what that means for litigation, but also thinking about what that means for my colleagues to do complex transactions and what they need to do in their practices. And so how do we figure out to communicate across our practices? Well, same thing, we need to communicate within our practices. I mean, I think we think about it from an economic standpoint of, oh yeah, we're all better for knowing this information. But that same philosophy translates into developing attorneys at every point in their career.
Well, and there's a parallel not just at work, but in organizations like ours as well, because we might have a lot of diverse members, but we haven't had a lot of diverse leaders. And that's why we started this podcast, is I realized we've had 15 female presidents, 8 minority presidents, 3 female minority presidents, but we're in Austin. And Austin loves to pride itself on including everybody, and we love everybody. We want everybody to be at the table. But that hasn't always been the case. So we thought, well, then let's talk about this every week and make sure that people know there are opportunities for all of us. But the only way they can know that is if we tell them about them. And so I think what you're doing with the firm, with TCWLA, we need more leaders who are willing to see all of those perspectives in all of the organizations that we're part of.
Yeah. And I think somebody told me I'm the second Black president of TCWLA. This organization has been around since, I believe, 1977. And, for me, that was important. When I was asked if I had interest in stepping onto the board and ultimately being the president, that was important to me because I've had women in Austin who are women of color who told me they felt like TCWLA was not a space for them. And obviously that's not something I personally feel, but I can see why people feel that way. And it's important to me. Our board, we have a really diverse board, but to your point, I want it reflected, top down in the firm context. I also want that reflected in our membership. I want the people who are practicing here in Austin, if they can come into TCWLA and find a space or make a space, and to truly know that this is Travis County Women Lawyers Association. This is not like Travis County Women Lawyers who have 2 kids, or Travis County Women Lawyers who, have this certain aspiration, or Travis County White Women Lawyers Association. This is Travis County Women Lawyers Association. And, as a Black woman, as a woman who is not a mother, we talk about the challenges that we face and experience as mothers. I don't have children, but I've, thinking about taking care of grandparents or older parents. And I know that there are a lot of women who also that disproportionately impacts. And we think about making sure that everyone feels like they have a space or can create a space. That's been really important because I've had people tell me that they didn't feel like this was an organization for them. And that's upsetting, but rather than getting upset, then what do you need to feel like it is? And I think by taking on a leadership role, that doesn't solve all the problems, but I think it's important to show I believe so much that this is a space for all women lawyers, that I'm willing to go, be the president of it, because I truly believe that's the case. And let me help show you that that's the case.
What are some of the organizations that have meant the most to you personally or professionally?
I think I've already went on and on about the virtues of TCWLA, both socially and professionally. But I will also say that personally, I've been a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated since 2011 and am a life member of that organization. And Sigma Gamma Rho is part of the National Panhellenic Council, which is an organization comprised of 9 historically Black sororities and fraternities. I am a legacy. My mother is a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated and has been for, I'll just say, more than a couple decades. But my sister is also a member, and I think being able to share sisterhood both with women, and this is internationally, has been really impactful to my life. And I've been in leadership roles in that organization as well. I'm currently the incoming historian for the next 2-year term of that of our local Austin chapter. And it's been an organization that has allowed me to explore my interest in supporting women's health initiatives, spreading awareness about human sex trafficking and sexual violence, about also women's health in terms of breast cancer awareness. So I know that one thing with TCWLA, we did do, I tried to do more awareness. We talked about breast cancer awareness and domestic violence awareness in our October meeting, right? And, distributed pins so people could wear them and distribute facts. And I've also tried to bring more awareness during Women's History Month. And I think that Sigma Gamma Rho has done a great job of, I know our local Austin chapter has supported efforts to the pink bus with free mammograms. We also work on Operation Big Book Bag. Those are both near and dear to my heart. Operation Big Book Bag in terms of supplying school supplies to local area students. And I know that even when I was in the Dallas area and the chapter that I was of there, we did the same thing. The service I get to do through that organization that has nothing to do with the law, but has everything to do with community, is something that has meant a lot in my life. And I know that TCWLA kind of, and that's, with the volunteer committee, why, even though I don't know if it made the most sense as president-elect for me to be the volunteer chair, it was something that was also important to me there as well.
What advice would you give to lawyers in Austin who want to get involved but don't know how?
When I moved here from Dallas, like I was very involved in the Dallas Association of Young Lawyers. Like I said, I was not involved in the Women Lawyers organization there. I was not involved in the, and that's the Black Lawyers Association there. And I think when I moved to Austin, it was a thought of, oh, I guess I should join AYLA because that's what I know. But rather than just, and I am a member of AYLA, but I've not taken necessarily the same leadership roles in that organization as I have in others. But it was more talking to people about like, well, what do you do? Actually, I had a young lawyer at my firm recently ask me this, saying, I know I want to get involved and TCWLA sounds great and I'll be a member of that, but what else is there? And, I can extol the virtues of TCWLA all day long, and I absolutely do. But I know I want to talk about like, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to do with your career? Because your career trajectory is not going to mirror mine. There might be overlap, obviously, but we have different backgrounds, perspectives, desires, things that we want to accomplish in life. And I want to make sure that whatever you're doing is feeding into your goals and not just checking a box. We have finite energy and finite time in a day. Don't sign up for stuff if it's not gonna fill your plate. Especially, if you have a billable hour requirement and you're spending time, you're spending a 0.8 at a meeting and it's not something that's gonna give you value and you've sacrificed that, you're gonna feel that. So for me, the non-billable time I spend doing these organizations, I don't really harp on that because I'm like, I'm getting so much more out of it elsewhere. And so for me, I thought about, well, okay, what do I need professionally in terms of, business development? What do I need also in terms of, social development and happiness and fulfillment? And so I was like, take stock of what your own priorities are. And in terms of how to get involved, we live in the internet age. And I say that, and I feel like I somehow am like a billion years old by saying that. But there are, talk to people. And even if I'm not in an organization, like I've had people, I'm not in Mamas because I don't have children, but I talked to a lawyer who moved here about 18 months ago. And I said, TCWLA maybe seemed like something for her, but she really wanted to connect with other like lawyer moms. And I said, well, let me connect you then to other lawyer moms. And so I think, if there's a happy hour going on that you see on the Austin Bar website, and I would encourage people to look at the Austin Bar website, but also look at the websites for the other affinity bars. You don't have to, even if it's not an organization that you are a member of that community. Again, I'm not saying go to like the membership meeting of an organization, but there's like, we have the diversity bar mixer in the spring. And so, just go to a happy hour and talk to someone, because even if they're doing something that maybe doesn't light your fire, this is a big little community. And so I'm sure they know somebody else who does. So I would say, talk to a lot of people, join the Austin Bar, because at least you'll get a lot of communications about other things going on around town. I know for TCWLA, we should probably do a better job of making sure our big events wind up on the Austin Bar calendar. And I think that the other affinity bars are trying to do the same thing, but also think about, is it just, bar service that I want to do? I would say talk to people and don't be afraid to just show up and try things.
Well, thank you for being here today. I think that you're going to do a great job as president. I hope that the audience become your members, or at least your supporters and your donors. So thanks for being here, y'all. See you soon.